Hello and welcome. I'm the Restless Kaiser.
I'm Johnny B.
And I'm Discourse. Hey.
But together we are
Morning.
Well,
just
no.
we are. Although I do want to get out there that I was lured tonight with a date with Restless Kaiser. He said it was going to be a Valentine's Day date. Suddenly Johnny B shows up. I'm like, okay, I can get into this. And then now there's a live stream. I think it's too much. I think it's too far.
on Valentine's theme, for anyone that didn't see it, Storm of Steel, Alex, who we had on the other week, put up his Valentine's card, which was a heart and a poem that said, "Roses are red, violets are blue, Fallschirm Jägergewehr 42."
Beautiful.
Right.
Beautiful.
I like
the type of card that only a war gamer could get you, you know?
Absolutely. So we'll just catch up with the chat then. Rich John is at work listening to the show. Oh no, he's on the way to work. Work getting in the way. There we go. I should read it, shouldn't I? Head rat waiting patiently. These guys were here early, 8:38.
Whoa.
They'll complete all the minis, done 49 so far, 100 more to go. And the number to keep going. Subs prediction early on what the show might be about. GW pricing now at a point where it's cheaper to buy a 3D printer than a combat patrol. No, I don't know whether we're quite there yet. Axonite's catching the rerun. The head rat is here. Nick from Team Clueless Games. Made it back in time from day out with the family to Longleat Safari Park. Did the monkeys poo on your car? That's what you go for, right? Crypto can't stay. Have a new sub, so what the catch up? Also, never asked Discourse about GW. She won't stop. That's probably going to be a strong theme tonight. Yeah. Maybe I could stretch 20 minutes. All right, might be staying for a bit. So GW, let's talk about Mythic Games KS scandal. Do you know anything about that?
The Kickstarter scandal. I not enough to talk about, I don't think.
Right. Okay. Plastic Crack Gaming is here. What the crack? Do you have the Battletech computer game? Because I've just been playing it, mate. And if you do, we should stream some games. And I will crush you. Laser Pirate Painting is here. Evening, Lowell. Tony Halton. Any hitchhikers from your trip to Longleat? Plastic Crack Gaming. Oh, they're just talking among themselves.
I'll leave the chatters to it.
Yeah. Talking about Warlord Epic Ancients. Oh, I don't think it's going to be Ancients. Unfortunately, I can't talk about Warlord Epic because I've had a heads up on what's coming, and therefore I can't speculate. I know, and I'm not allowed to say.
Can I blindly speculate, and then you can like do this or
no.
like that, or warm or colder? How about that?
Go on then, Discourse. We can't do anything, but you say what you think to do.
I have no idea what Epic Ancients is, but I'm gonna guess Rome. Celts, come on, warmer, colder. What am I? 15 millimeter, 10 millimeter. What are we? Warmer, colder. Come on, guys, don't leave me out here.
For anyone that doesn't know Warlord Epic, Warlord are doing an announcement tomorrow about what's new for Epic, and it's a new era. I believe they have said
a new era. What do they currently do? What eras do they currently have?
Civil War and Napoleonics, American Civil War and Napoleonics.
Oh. Yeah. Oh, it's Rome there. It's got to be Rome. If they're doing like ancients, come on, it's got to be ancient Rome.
Where they started. I can say that much. Their first screw was Roman. Anyway, Tony Halton, cheers for heads up. Listen, the Rest is History podcast. I'm a really big fan of it. If you have a commute or something, it is a podcast. It's not a live show in that respect. Warlord Resin differs from Psyocast. Battlefront taking up the new harder Psyocast Reserve Judgment. This is what PSC are using, then I'm not impressed. Yes, they're all doing the same thing and calling it different names. And they're all, it seems that this new material has come from the Psyocast people, because all three of them are now seem to be using a new, improved, harder material. In that respect, the support packs, so, like the mortar, the machine gun, the medical, and an HQ team or something like that they used to do in metal, then redoing those in resin and packaging them with a few order dice, which was an interesting thing.
Is that just, so are they just doing, so for those that don't know, the new bolt action support groups are all coming in this new like Warlord Resin, which, as you say, is basically Psyocast. Is that just the new support groups that are coming, or is like the older ones as well? Are they coming in COCast as well? The ones that are currently being sold in metal, are they being repackaged?
I think they're converting them over.
Okay, cool.
Well, currently, some of the American and Japanese ones that are available, but I think the plan is
so it's like a fine cast scenario, but hopefully not the bad bit. Hopefully not the bad bit. They're just updating the ranges. Okay, cool.
It's not as bad as that. I think it's harder Sirecast. Indeed. I'm going to try and get hold of one from Warlord and have a look. But they've not done any of the armies that we collect yet.
No. I thought you collect them all. What do you mean?
No. I'm actually tempted to get the Japanese one because when we finish the Normandy campaign, we are probably going to do a Guadalcanal thing. Hello there, Bringing Battle. JB is the third wheel of MfA. He is the crotch upon which I rest.
I was into it, honestly.
Oh gosh, it just keeps going on. Discourse is strong in her. Yeah, well, that's probably true. I'm nearly at the end. I do indeed and challenge accept. Mate, I will email you. We've got to do that. I'll school you, mate. I've played it for at least 2 days now. I'm a pro. Gareth says, thanks to Mrs. Kaiser, my order. Oh, yeah, you can buy things from Modeling for Advantage. Mrs. Kaiser does that. Hello, sausages. Rosie was here. I saw. I missed her. There we go. Yeah. That's blah, 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 blah. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. Yep. I should have had a picture of a Valentine tank, shouldn't I, as the background? Right.
Yeah, maybe.
Hobby-wise, tonight I am going to try and continue to get some more paint on these Flames of War Britishers. No, it's not really focusing. I've got the boots to do, which I think we all agreed were black last time we talked, and even if we didn't agree on that, that's what they're going to be.
Brown and black.
Anything for you, John?
I'm going to just hold on to this Flames of War pit, which you wanted me to do something with.
Yeah, you're going to put
I couldn't be bothered.
Put some sandbags.
So, yeah, that's a really bad idea. What am I doing? I'm playing around with some really interesting lizardmen because they are needed for absolutely nothing. From War Games Atlantic, they're kind of cute. So yeah, I'm going to do that and play with some other kits as well. Do you have any hobby on your table there, Discourse?
I'm going to try and speed read the entire Conflict 47 rulebook as we talk. There'll be no problem.
We won't be talking Discourse. You will.
I thought you were into G-dubs. I thought you might have the new whatever box set it is.
I haven't bought a Games Workshop box set in a really long time. And in fact, I was this close to buying Soul Shackle, but then it got sold out like immediately before it released. So then I was like, oh well, I guess that was made up for me. I haven't bought a box set in so long because they're too expensive. They're too much money to justify. And
well, you're going to tell me right now because you do a little bit on YouTube, don't you, Discourse? Can you tell me and the viewers as to your channel and its primary function?
It's called Discourse Minis, and it's all about discoursing about minis.
Sweet.
Hey, so long as I get a video out each week, all right? It's all good. I don't need to play the newest releases. No, look. Okay, here's the deal. Okay, I'm interested in some stuff. So, for example, the Imperial Guard recently got a release, and the Imperial Guard are like my babies. Okay, like they're the army that I first fell in love with, and I was so here for a range refresh. I was so up for it because I've had an army sitting up there like in storage for like 15 years now of just waiting for the excuse to get cracked out again and ready to go. And they came out in this big army box, and it's like, I don't really want to support that. And now they're all being released, and they are extremely expensive for what they are, especially considering the fact that they are Imperial Guardsmen, right? I mean, I did the maths the other day. Compared to 2006, a Guardsman squad has doubled in price, right? They have doubled in price since 2006 when I started wargaming. And I can't justify that. I can't justify buying those. So they used to cost £18. Now, if you account for inflation, that would be either £28 if you want to listen to the Bank of England, or £33 if you want to listen to some random website that I got this year. And that's fine. The current boxes of Cadian Guardsmen are sold at £30. So you think, probably about equal. Well, no, because in 2006 they used to sell a box set of 20 guardsmen. Now they sell a box set of 10. So it's actually doubled in price. In reality, if I want an army, which I do, no one's buying like a single squad of guardsmen and going, well, that's my force completed. No, like you're gonna need a lot of guardsmen. So they've doubled in price, and it's just it's so frustrating because I want to buy this army. I need to buy this army, but
did you really want to?
Oh yeah, I actually really like the new sculpts. I actually think the new sculpts are fantastic. There's one thing I do not. If there's one thing I don't criticize Games Workshop for, it is their designs are generally good. There's like armies I don't like, but generally speaking, obviously they've got very beautiful sculpts and very good depth of detailing.
Nah, I think they went downhill since getting rid of Gary Morley. To be fair.
And when was that, John? 1980?
I don't know, 90 something. But his Nagash model was the pinnacle of sculpting. Fact.
We've got all the clothing tonight. Look, Morning Glory is here.
What's going on?
Imperial Guard.
Oh, Imperial Guard represent.
Indeed.
Yeah, indeed. And so, yeah, guys, if you're one of our viewers and you've not seen Discourse before, I would say Discourse. I would describe Discourse channel as the kind of consumer protection angle on mostly Games Workshop, but sometimes some of the dark practices of other companies. And she does her research. You used to be like a paralegal or something, didn't you? You worked in.
Yeah, I was in the legal field. Let's say that much.
Yeah. So you do know some of what you're talking about in these areas. Good to see Morning Glory, by the way. Another great channel if you're into your Imperial Guard, or if you just want to pay £2 to watch him chug. He streams a lot these days, and that's the thing. And he earns a living, right, buddy?
It's the bolt action content. Actually, I've been watching a lot of Morty and Glory's bolt action battle reports. Actually,
because he's gone for that kind of crossover. Found for Warhammer players, bolt action is very familiar. Like
I find that generally speaking, Imperial Guard players do tend to be the ones that are more likely to cross over into kind of the real world, like historical games, for sure.
It was because it's just humans, right?
Yeah, but
yeah, absolutely. You say Imperial Guard 3 times and Morty and Glory pops out of floorboards. That's probably true. Right, Discourse. Now that's your main channel, and you watch that. You follow the big companies, and you talk about GW News. But more recently, you found another great hobby, a tangential hobby to wargaming, to be outraged about, which is Dungeons and Dragons.
I don't want to be. I don't want to be outraged.
and so furious have you been about what's been going on with the D&D licensing that you created another channel just to rant about what's wrong with the contracts and the open gaming license. So can you kind of outline the story to us?
Yeah, so I've been planning on doing a general tabletop role playing game channel for a while, actually, because I've basically been playing role playing games for as long as I've been playing Warhammer and war games, right? I actually got into role playing games through Dark Heresy, which is the Warhammer 40K TTRPG. So that's how I got into it. And I've been playing this for like 15 years now. And they're like my second big hobby. I basically don't get out a lot, but I do play at a table a lot. So that's like that's like my second big hobby. And so I've been meaning to do a channel on there for a while. And honestly, I wanted it to be like my little chill side channel where I do like little DM advice and stuff like that. And then the kind of OGL stuff happened. The open gaming license for Wizards of the Coast happened. And I think that
what is that?
So the open gaming license, I'm going to be super brief because to be honest, I think that there's been like too much detail given out on this thing. Yeah. Basically, loads of third-party independent creators rely on the open gaming license to create content for their games and Dungeons and Dragons-esque games. Basically, it's a Wizards of the Coast saying you could use all this stuff from Dungeons and Dragons. We're never going to sue you. Don't worry about it. And they wanted to make changes to the open gaming license, and a lot of that was going to be retroactive and impact existing things on the market. And those third-party creators were very worried about it because it would do things like you would have to report your earnings to Wizards of the Coast. Once you started earning a certain amount, you'd have to give them royalties. They had the ability to kick you out of the program as well. And they had the ability to take your work and license it themselves. And so they could make money off it, kick you out of the program, and you wouldn't be able to monetize it anymore. So it was really problematic. And the D&D community,
to be clear, this is not necessarily small creators, right? This started quite a long time ago with like D20 system. We started when they started to franchise out the idea that people who've done any role playing, D&D is to role playing what Warhammer is to wargaming, right? It's the big brand. So you're not talking about small companies here that had kind of created games, systems, campaigns, or whole worlds that are just elected because of the gaming license. So, well, rather than having a proprietary rule set, we'll use one that people are already familiar with, make some changes. And you're talking about companies now. It's a big part of these companies. Yeah.
Like Paizo, Critical Role, obviously, I think are a big famous one that rely on it. But and even games, I think one of those things about the open gaming license is that it was so foundational to the culture of RPGs that even games that really weren't doing anything with Dungeons and Dragons would just have it printed in their books, because why not, right? There was no risk to having it in your book, but it could potentially protect you at some stage. So like even games like Delta Green that are basically Call of Cthulhu would have Dungeons and Dragons open gaming license printed in them.
Call of Cthulhu 21st century, right?
Yeah, because why not, right? And so this was like a super big risk for them, but the entire community basically disliked it. They detested it, and there's all sorts of good reasons why. And they came together and they fought against it. And the scale of disruption, I think, to Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro was such that they reversed it. They actually reversed it. They tried to make a little change. After 2 weeks, they just couldn't handle it. And there were so many D&D plus D&D Beyond subscription cancellations. They started I think they lost millions in cancellations from their subscriber service. It was a huge movement to basically try, and they had to just walked it back. In fact, they went further and put a bunch of their stuff in Creative Commons.
So it can work, taking a stand.
It can. If you've got an activist kind of population of consumers, and if you have people who really care deeply about it and are willing to make substantive movements, you can make changes. You can. To be honest, though, I'm gonna be real honest. I was surprised that it worked so effectively. It's actually very rare. I guess maybe I am a little bit cynical sometimes, and because I honestly felt that what would happen is they would make some performative aesthetic changes to the contract. You know, maybe they change some of the numbers on like the royalty fees and things like that. And they would kind of, to appear conciliatory, they'd do a lot of messages about how they're listening to feedback, et cetera, and then we'd end up in like 6 months with a contract that maybe wasn't as bad, but wasn't as good either, right? But they actually walked it back completely, so that was good. We're back to kind of square one. We're back to like the status quo, which is good.
Wow.
But the danger still exists that they have put a chip in the armor of the idea that this is eternal, right?
Oh,
that
yeah.
From this day forth, this is what you can do, which is what makes it attractive to people to participate in that arrangement.
Yeah, exactly. And
that they could, and they have considered just reining that back in and changing it means going forwards, all of these third-party companies are looking to get out.
The trust is gone. It's like they crossed the Rubicon. It's like you can't walk it back. You can't go back in time. You know, the genie's out of the bottle. Paizo, Free Leagues, like all these different companies are all building now their own platforms from which to build games. They're trying to separate themselves away from the OGL, because as much as the OGL has now been determined by Wizards of the Coast to be like irrevocable, what they haven't said is that the OGL, as it stands right now, covers Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. It's not going to cover the new version of Dungeons & Dragons. There will be a new OGL for the new versions of Dungeons & Dragons. And I have a feeling that one is going to look a lot like the version that they wanted for 5th edition. And that, I mean, I think the companies need to prepare themselves for the idea that the future of Dungeons & Dragons is one where they're not really there to participate in, right? That the wagons are getting circled a little bit, and they're trying to kind of create a little ecosystem for themselves. And I mean, I can see why they're doing it from a business perspective, but it obviously sucks for players.
You know, as someone who fought their way through GURPS in the 90s.
GURPS!
because I was tired of learning new systems all the time. It's a generic universal roleplay system, but it is horrifically complicated.
Best name for a game ever.
And millions of supplements. Millions of supplements.
GURPS is so good though.
You're going to need a supplement in that game.
Oh, it's so good. It's such a good game.
It's going to be complicated. But, you know, as someone who enjoys playing a really wide range of different games, proprietary systems was something I was never fond of. You know, it's like, look, to play this new game, you've got to learn this new systems. And right, so the first 3 weeks is getting through the first combat while we all work out how this all goes or whatever. And then realizing going into the second combat, we know how combat works. We're probably going to do it quite differently and so forth. So D&D is a system with a million flaws in it, but at least you understood it and you could just rock up and play a game.
Yeah, exactly. It's useful to have a system like that. Although it should be GURPS. It should be GURPS. Can I make a pitch here to Steve Jackson Games like right now, live on air? Can I?
Right.
Yes. Can I change the name of this game? Change the name of this game. Why is it called GURPS? Why is it called GURPS? Change it. Call it Infinite Worlds. That's the actual setting. Infinite Worlds is such a better, more memorable name, a more interesting name. Why don't you have an intro adventure either? What's going on there? Why is there no starter set for this game? And why doesn't it start in a Dungeons and Dragons world, go into a 1930s Cthulhu world, and then end in a big sci-fi world, right? Come on!
What it should be called?
Traveler.
I'm
old school, mate. I played original Traveler. Mark Miller's original Traveler.
What are you doing here?
Upgrade to GURPS at some point.
Seriously, sorry, that's just a massive pet peeve I have about GURPS. It's such a good game, but no one ever gives it a time of day because it's called GURPS.
Yeah,
and it sounds complicated. It sounds complicated, but it's not. It's not. It's 3d6. If you get over 10, you're fine, or under 10, you're fine. You're sweet.
It hasn't changed inside since it was lovely pen and ink drawings there.
It's beautiful.
You remember this era?
So good. I'm pretty sure we've scared off all the viewers, though. We've come in for like some wargaming chat, and then we're like,
no. You've had some questions in there about other systems.
Yeah.
Like, have you played Shadowrun? That's a question from Michael Wayne there.
Oh,
have you played Shadowrun?
I've played Shadowrun, if you can call it playing.
What did you think of it? That's the question.
I think it's 3 different games trying to be one, and it's really tough to play. I love the setting, and I think it's a really fun setting, but I think the system itself has a lot of problems because there's 3 ways to interact. You've got the real world, you've got the internet, and you've got like magical dimension reality. And each player is interacting with a different sphere of reality, which means there's 3 separate games all happening at the one time. And it's really confusing. It's really messy. It gets really tough. But
boo.
Fun setting though.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody loves being an orc with a Gatling gun. You know what I mean? Like, or a big ogre, or troll. It is, isn't it?
Yeah, troll. Definitely troll.
Yeah.
Troll for the win.
I don't remember if there were ogres. There might have been. There's definitely trolls though. Yeah, Traveller was indeed a game where creating a character, you could die in the character creation process. But you know, you love a game where they encourage you to push it, right? When you want a risk reward thing, you make choices. Yeah.
Yeah, I would die every time then, I think.
I've never played Traveller. I've never actually played Traveller now. Although I've seen the Traveller world map, which looks incredible. The map of the galaxy.
The galaxy map?
Yeah, it's so good.
You might have seen a Spinwood Marches map.
Not on a physical paper. There's a website that has the entire galaxy map, but you think it's huge, and then you zoom out and you realize it's this tiny part of the galaxy. It's the only map that I've ever seen actually get the scale of space correct, right? Where there's so much, it's unfathomable how big the galaxy is, right? It's another thing Games Workshop got wrong. But that is a problem with Warhammer. The galaxy feels really small, especially like Arcs of Omen and stuff like that.
Because everybody goes to the same place to fight every month.
It's the same. Yeah,
the little gooch, the gooch of the galaxy. That's where everyone goes to fight.
I like to imagine they're all meeting up in Gilliman's living room. You know, that's where all the action happens. Every Friday night.
Yeah, I was a kung fu orc. I died for a bad role because I fell in love with an elven barmaid. Can't throw herself in front of a shotgun to save her. Both died. Oh, died. Oh, right. He didn't even succeed. There you go. Shadowrun. Yeah, it was. And the video games are interesting. There's just a bit. There's a lot of reading if you haven't played them before and attempted. But they're a faithful recreation of the system for all of its ills and goods. Yeah, GURPS Traveler.
I originally, I mean, I have a dream that I'm the biggest, like one day I will be the biggest GURPS channel online. But I think that what I'll need is
like the only GURPS channel online.
Yeah.
You know,
I think after the first subscriber, you quit to qualify.
Boom, I'm in.
Online. Yeah, I'm in the running.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you ever play GURPS and you've not played it before, ask the person running the game for pre-generated characters. That will save you a lot of time and sweat.
No. The true GURPS experience is to go into the game having no idea what you're gonna make, get like a points value, so you get given 100 points, and then go through the book, go straight to disadvantages, and just start looking through the disadvantages. And then once you see one, you go, "Oh, I want to play a character with this disadvantage," and then there you go, build your characters based on that.
One of the strongest ones is disembodied brain. You get a lot of points for being a disembodied brain.
That's the incredible thing about GURPS, I think, that gets hidden away in all this conversation, but it's too complicated and stuff. Only the GM needs to know a lot of stuff. Players don't need to know much at all. And you can be anything. I've had players be disembodied brains in jars. I've had players be brain slugs that mind control people when they're inside them. It's so good.
Hex maps in the back.
Oh, you gotta have the hex maps.
Oh, wow.
Hex maps. Whereas Traveller was in range bands, he didn't even worry about where you were laterally. In range bands to the enemy. Yeah, Traveller. Love Traveller. You could. There was no equality between players in Traveller. You say you want to go to a career, say, I want to be a sailor, join the Navy, roll the dice, said, nah, you didn't make it in the Navy, you got drafted into the Army. Oh, right, okay.
Things don't always go as they plan, you know? I love that, though. See, I am a fan. So I think that there is this like underlying conflict amongst games that I don't think it's talked about very often between simulationist and game. Right, in TTRPGs, like how close do you want to eke towards actually playing as a person, as opposed to playing as a character, you know, like as a character in a game, right? Like it's the kind of Dungeons and Dragons class system. I start at level 1 and I start fighting monsters to level up, as opposed to the I'm a person in a world. Let's just see what happens, right?
Yeah,
truth.
Yeah. Oh, memory lane, MERP, the Middle Earth role playing system. Did you ever play that?
I never played MERP, no, but I've heard of it.
What was it? What was the parent game called? Ringmaster? No.
Okay, we're getting a little bit old school for me now. We're getting old school for me now.
Yeah. Oh.
I say that I've got a fantasy trip on my shelf.
MERP is a Lord of the Rings version of another system, which was about myriad tables. Everything you did, you rolled the D100 and applied modifiers and read tables, and tables had descriptive as well as numerical effects associated with them. It was a time-consuming game to play. let's just
guys, can we take a second just to appreciate how many awesome games there are out there? You know, how many cool, awesome games there are. How many experiences you can have. I gotta say this much. Yeah, we are, and I'm so glad that I'm not kind of stuck in a single game, right? I'm so happy that I've managed to have all these different experiences. And that's all I want. That's all I want for everybody, because they're out there and they're so much fun. They're so good.
I don't like the idea that Tony Hawk says the truth is that I'm an avatar for a GURPS disembodied brain. Does that mean that means I got a lot of points though?
It does. A lot of points to spend.
A lot of points to spend, but what did I spend on? RuneQuest. Was it RuneQuest? No.
RuneQuest.
It wasn't RuneQuest.
RuneQuest got a re-release recently, did it not? RuneQuest.
Yeah.
I feel like I've been hearing the name.
Rolemaster. That's what it was.
Okay, we're getting too old school for me now. We're getting too old school for me now.
All right. Okay. And we're not a role-playing channel. And anyway, I've said this before. The true king of role-playing games, if you want it, is Magic Bomb, Ars Magica. This is the role-playing system for wizards. Which is what you obviously wizards are the superior class in all game. And in RuneQuest, that could be a duck sorcerer.
Oh.
And I don't know how you top that.
Boo the wizards. Boo the wizards.
Boo the wizards.
Boo the wizards.
John, are you pro wizard or are you in the Conan like Kill the Sorcerer League?
No, I don't trust magic. So yeah, kill him dead.
Kill the wizard.
Nice.
Yeah. Wizard.
Filthy wizard.
There it is.
So GW then, Discourse, evil, right?
Evil.
Oh, from a certain point of view.
Well, from your point of view.
I never deal in absolutes.
Yeah, okay.
Look, I think that so Games Workshop certainly I think do harm to wargaming generally. I think they've done good as well though, so it's kind of like a mixed bag, right? They certainly try to make a very accessible product, at least in terms of being
the product, not the cost.
Yeah, being the product. They're basically, I'm starting to think of them more like a kind of like a big fly catcher, you know, these days, big bright light that everyone kind of goes, ooh, and then they get zapped, and then they're like, okay, I'm out.
Yeah.
You know,
the blue light draws you in.
Yeah, because I used to always say that they were a lighthouse attracting hobbyists into wargaming, but now I think they're a fly swatter. Yeah, so bit of a bummer, really. I'm increasingly under the conception that people are getting into Warhammer and they're not then filtering into other games, or they are, but it's such a minuscule amount, you know, that it's basically it's not really worth it. That the amount of people who drop out are kind of so overwhelming that actually it's kind of a net loss. So to give you, I mean, because I'm imagining a world, right, where Warhammer doesn't exist, we might have other games that would be the kind of big war games, and they might have then the potential to attract people into the wargaming hobby if Warhammer wasn't around. You get me? So maybe Bolt Action would be more popular. Maybe Conflict 47 would be more popular. Maybe Infinity would be really big. Maybe there'd be Infinity video games. We don't know, right? There's a lot of games out there with really strong IPs. And maybe if they were run by, maybe if the biggest wargaming company, a la, you know, Games Workshop, maybe if they were run more as a wargaming company rather than just a kind of Apple ecosystem, welcome to our IP and read our books, because that's what we sell. Like maybe if that was the case, wargaming would be bigger overall, you know. But you're kind of spitballing alternative worlds now. We've got this one. It's about trying to make the hobby as big and beautiful as possible.
Investing all the profits into developing an enzyme that eats resin. Right, there's a way to destroy any other companies. That might work. I mean, it's a curious one, isn't it? Because on the face of it, and you know, you said imagining a world without Warhammer. Some people will be crying at that possibility.
I just imagine all the people holding hands, running around in a ring, you know, on the hills, singing songs.
because Warhammer isn't someone else's IP, and I think that's really interesting. I think that's very interesting in so far as just about any other game with its own IP isn't successful. I
actually would say the opposite. I would say the games that have IPs of other companies tend to not be as successful. Mars Attacks, Aliens, Starship Troopers.
Franchise games. These are not serious games in most cases.
Batman Minis game. Oh God. Okay, so when I think of big, strong games with IPs, I think Star Wars Legion and Marvel Crisis Protocol.
Yeah.
What am I missing?
They're other people's IPs.
Yeah, what am I missing though? Like, are they the only two big games that are working off of other?
No, what I'm saying is having their own IP.
Oh,
yeah, making their own crap and
making like
it big.
No one's buying into it. What's the big problem with Antari is there's a whole bunch of crap behind it that no one gives a rat's ass about.
Let's be real though. I mean, one of the problems with Antares was the actual setting. Like that was not a good setting. Or it was, but it wasn't presented in an interesting way, right? And I'm sorry, I know I'm gonna be breaking some hearts out there, but like honestly, there were elements of Antares that was cool. They were not leaned into. All the there was factions that looked very samey. The starter box came with these two like Mass Effect factions that genuinely I couldn't tell the difference of them at a glance. It was a bad seal, you know, of that setting. Sure. Gates of Antares could have been big though. Like for sure. It could have been big, but I think they focused on the wrong thing.
Just to get Dwayne off Fizzy, the BattleTech is very successful. Indeed.
It is.
I am currently BattleTech as a game is having a huge renaissance as part of its re-release. And BattleTech goes back to the 70s in one form or another. But we would not have been talking about BattleTech 10 years ago.
People love
BattleTech
their
died
minutes.
in the 90s, was kept going by a cadre of hardcore guys and presumably some girls, and then it was rebirthed.
Can I make a spicy take? It's video games. It's video games. That's all that matters. If you can get a video game, that's how you get people. Because BattleTech got video games, and that's why people started to actually like take an interest in it again. Because video games, I mean, to be honest, video games just have such a huge audience compared to wargaming. It's unreal, even compared to something like D&D, right? Dungeons and Dragons, which is $1 billion franchise. Even that has a tiny, insignificant audience when compared to video games. If you can get a video game made, that can really power boost. And this is what Games Workshop have realized, and that's why they're licensing out their IP so much now, because they understand that all they have to do is license out the IP, and they just get more and more and more and more customers, and they make more and more and more money. It's really that simple. The problem is we have a lot of I would say we have a lot of strong IPs that are war games. I think Infinity is a really strong IP. I think the Conflict 47 is a really strong IP. Okay, I'm blanking on some others here. Yeah, but they don't have video games, right? Because they're too kind of obscure. They're too obscure right now. They just do. Although and it's funny, it doesn't seem to work the other way around, because you can have a massive IP and still not have a huge audience for your war game. And I'm thinking like the DC,
when they make movie war games.
Yeah, you can DC miniatures, you can make Batman miniatures, doesn't have a big audience. Marvel Crisis Protocol and Star Wars Legion are like the two biggest.
Yeah, the Crisis Protocol one's interesting because it's also very expensive.
Oh yeah.
I remember John was looking to get his brother a miniature for Christmas, and it's price of a single miniature was getting on for 30 quid, wasn't it?
He wanted Hulk. And I was like, there's no way I'm spending that. Yeah, you're my brother, but no.
30 quid on one miniature.
It's wild. It's wild. But you'll notice that they're priced very similarly to Warhammer stuff for those individual minis.
Even Warhammer don't charge you 30 quid for one mini.
Yeah, they do.
And they're working on it.
Maybe it's serious.
For the big one. Yeah, for the big ones, they do. And that's the thing. The Marvel Crisis Protocol minis are all kind of like, they're all iconic kind of pieces, right? And they've got like a little bit of the base and stuff. Fallout is the same as well. They have very expensive miniatures because they think they can push the price point higher because they've got a kind of notable IP, right? That people will buy them to collect and paint because they're fans of the IP first, rather than wargamers.
Yeah. I'm now for a miniature.
I disagree, though. I think they're overpriced. Same with the Star Wars Shatterpoint. What a ridiculous price point that is.
So
absolutely.
I've not looked into that.
One from subs, which again is another interesting one for me. And there's a few different elements to this, isn't there? Most people who buy GW miniatures don't play the game. So I would say that breaks down into two groups. There's those that don't play the game at all. And some of them want to but don't have people that will play it, or they're just kids. But then there's the other people who just don't want to play it anymore.
I think a lot of people have. So yeah, I think that firstly, a lot of people don't play Warhammer because they just want to like collect the minis, or they're just interested in the kind of setting, and so they kind of buy it because it's kind of neat, right? It's almost like a collectible. I think a lot of people just buy them as collectibles as well. So maybe they will buy like one squad and just be like, okay, I'm gonna do that and be done. But yeah, I think there are people who have bought the Warhammer minis with the intention of playing, and maybe can convince like a friend to try the game out with them, and then they get involved in this like 4-hour slug match trying to consult the rulebook, or get like blasted off the table in the first round, or like they just. The game is so hard and onerous to get to the table that they end up just never actually really getting to play it and just aren't a fan of the game. And I think that's a big problem as well for the people who would be gamers, right? Who would be kind of interested in it. I think war gamers.
It's interesting because we talk a lot about war gamers and wargaming, and we're kind of like that. I think it's a significant thing. I think, when I think about
a majority of players like don't play. Yeah, like
the majority of players just don't play.
Oh yeah, I would say that 70% of people who buy Warhammer minis actually have no intention of playing with it. 30% have like an intention, and then 5% ever get it to a table, and then 1% continue to buy. I think that's like straight, like unscientific off the top of my head. That would be like the numbers that I would give if I had to. If I was in a court of law.
I mean, certainly running a war games club in a school, every year a new wave of kids comes in, and there's kids with some miniatures that turn up at my club, and they've had them for N years and they've never rolled the dice. You know, and I'm just stunned by it. Sometimes they've got a dad or some granddad has painted them for them. I mean, some kids rock up with beautiful miniatures because of relatives.
Really?
Yeah, and you just kind of, you kind of reliving that. So Christmas Day, you got this home, you unwrapped it, and you're like, "What am I supposed to do with this?" that's as far as it ever went. You failed to glue a few bits together because you didn't have any glue, and here you are now, 2 years later, saying, "I wonder if you can help me learn to play this."
Well, I mean, again, though, I think that's where the IP being really strong comes in, right? Like that people get interested, like, because it is a lot of effort. It's a lot of effort to open the box and take the models out of the sprue and clip them and glue them and figure out how to put them together and decide what weapons you want to put them on and then prime them and paint them and then finally get them on the table. It's like a ton of work, it's a ton of work. And you need to be motivated to do that. And I actually have a big problem with motivation where I'll get really
skill.
Yeah, and there is an element. I mean, like let's be real though, not a lot. I mean, like I'm able to put together some.
I mean, like some more skill.
Yeah, there is a little bit. Yeah. You couldn't give it to like a child and just expect them just to be fine, right? Definitely not. But yeah, there's an element of skill, like very basic skill. But yeah, for sure, and that you require like a motivation to get into it. You need to be interested in the setting to some extent. You can't just be like, what are these guys? Oh, they're the Algoran, are they? And they're good, are they? Okay, well, I guess I'll just build a force of the Algoran then. Here, take 100 pounds and off a pop, right? I'm going to spend the rest of like a month putting together these forces and find out if I like them. You need to be like into the setting and world for sure. But that's why Warhammer Plus is so frustrating, because again, anything that they can do to get their IP out there, I think should be seized at.
So just to compare that to an experience, because I just had this weekend, my mother came down with came to visit with one of my nieces. She's 15. She plays D&D with her friends online. She's got a collection of plushies and Funko Pops, like many children like her. So we're at Smith's Toys with my young son and her. So you want to go upstairs? That's where the board games are. She comes home with a Game of Life, Super Mario Brothers edition.
Nice.
Okay.
So Game of Life. The most complicated thing to assemble in this is the spinner, because you need numbers between 1 and 10. It's got a spinner on it. It's got 4 pre-painted lovely miniatures of Mario, Luigi, the little dragon thing that you can ride, and the princess. Peach, she's called, isn't she?
Nice. Yeah.
And we spent a few hours, spinning the thing and saying, "Hey, it's me, Mario," until somebody killed Bowser. And I was just kind of like thinking, as you're thinking about what the new wargaming experience is like for a kid, compared with that, the instructions were on a few sheets of paper and a fold out. Most of the information was on the cards. Like when you land here, you take one of these cards and it tells you what to do. Not in the way that Magic the Gathering tells you what to do, but in the way that a human being can understand on first reading what you have to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to find it really difficult to graduate from that if that's what a modern family board game looks like, which has got a strong IP associated with it and some nice models. She was kind of getting all of that, like, these are the characters I like, except the models were pre-painted.
Yeah.
She's getting that out of the box. And I think a lot of gamers want that for the same reason, it's just an interesting comparison.
So bear in mind, right? Like if we're talking, so I think it depends. Are we talking wargaming generally? Or are we talking Warhammer? Because with Warhammer, there is an onboarding process, and I think it starts more at Underworlds and products like that are designed to be sold in like bookstores and board game shops and things like that, right? This kind of small scale experience that comes with easy fit minis that you don't even necessarily need glue for. You pop them together, and then and they act more like board game pieces, and you just use them like that. And then from there, the intention is that you kind of graduate to like a Warhammer starter set that comes, and it's at that stage that you're really getting into then you have to be a kind of self-directed, right? Because you have to want to get into Warhammer at that stage, and you have to have had some exposure to the IP in some way. And I mean, that's fair enough. I think that they could do a lot more to get people from the Warhammer Underworld into the actual game of Warhammer, though, which is why I was really excited about Boarding Patrol, which is the new kind of version of Warhammer, because it's
we haven't seen the sets of that come out yet, have we?
We have. We have seen them. Yeah, they came out, because the sets are basically, you can buy a Boarding Patrol box, which is like a small combat patrol. And it's I think it's like 400 points or so. And then you can buy this massive $200 box set of terrain. And that's what you need to play. And you need another book, and you need the rule book as well on top of that, right? So it's not a very good onboarding experience. Now, in fairness to Games Workshop, they never said that it would be accessible or fun or casual friendly. I just assumed that it would be. But I guess I was wrong to assume that it would be in any way accessible, because it's really not. But it's really frustrating, because it's like a 400-point game. It should be this is the time. If you're ever going to be like, here's the really easy to play version of Warhammer, it's this time, right? It's this moment whenever you're making a 400-point version of Warhammer.
Yeah, I'm kind of astonished that there isn't an easy to play Warhammer.
Yeah,
I keep when Kill Team first came out, we kind of all thought it was going to be that, and I think it was billed as that. But actually, it was 8th edition plus. It had extra rules, not less rules. And the new Kill Team, and I do like the new Kill Team, but it's a completely different game. System-wise, it's alien.
It's weird.
But it's not weird. It's only weird. It should be like Warhammer.
It's weird,
but it doesn't have anything in common. It has as much in common with Warhammer as Blood and Plunder does with Warhammer.
Looking forward to that Kickstarter, by the way.
I don't know if anyone's not seen it.
Raise the Black. Oh, you got yours? Oh, mine hasn't arrived yet. Mine hasn't arrived yet. Although I pre-ordered, I think they said.
I've been sitting on that for a couple of weeks.
You might be upset because they sent me that. I didn't kickstart.
I never get anything. I never get anything sent to me.
Do you ask?
No, not really. I promise you that. Different. Yeah. Okay. You have to send me some email.
Said, we're looking at this.
See, I don't do unboxings or anything on my channel. It's the problem. I want to though. But I'd probably stream them. But I do want to do more like talking about other products and stuff. It's just I only do like one video a week. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Yeah, no, I wasn't around for it or wasn't paying enough attention.
Plenty positive.
But am I right in thinking that for Sigmar there was something called Skirmish, and that really was like Sigmar Light?
Yeah, well, it's kind of funny. Age of Sigmar, in a lot of ways, did the opposite of 40K, and I think was really was a much better game for that in a lot of ways. Like, it was a much more accessible product, because clearly they wanted younger people to get on board with their game, and so everything was cheaper. They sold the smaller kind of bundles that were cheaper bundles. Things tended to be worth, used to be better value for money. It was just a much easier product to buy into. And then as the game got a little bit more popular, they started to remove all that stuff. They started getting rid of data sheets inside the box sets and things. And we're like, no, actually, never mind. The rules aren't free anymore. You have to buy everything. Bye-bye. And it's kind of a bummer. But
it was a much simpler system in everything. It's core mechanics and as you say, they give you but then they killed it. But that's business, right? People buy it.
Well, that's the thing, though. See, because I mean, I've come to the conclusion. I've decided in my head that Games Workshop are more interested in high lifetime value customers as opposed to a wide accessible product, right? So as much as in my opinion, it would be better for Warhammer and for wargaming if they made cheaper games that were easier to play and got people into the gaming space And that meant that there'd be more people playing, which meant that it could kind of sustain itself a little bit better because you'd be able to meet with other people. And this would be good for gamers because we'd all be like, ha ha ha, we're like living in, Toontown and we're having a lot of fun. And then maybe other people would go into other games for like more heavier, crunchier kind of game. I think that would be like a much more healthy kind of ecosystem for gaming. But I think what Games Workshop have decided is that they just want people who can afford really expensive prices and will continue to pay lots and lots of money. And they're happy for it to be a really small population because ultimately they make more money. So who cares about how many people are playing? What we care about is how much money that we're making. And that's the disconnect, right? So,
They're
I mean,
in Henry Cavill, not.
Yeah, exactly.
Me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, they're interested in a type of customer who will look at these new these new boarding patrol boxes and see, 50% off Warhammer. That means that these 12 guys aren't going to be 115 pounds. Instead, they're going to be 55 pounds. What value? Right? Like that's the type of that's the kind of thinking that they want to they want to solicit. So
within this, I honestly believe part of it is our fault, right? Because
you can take the blame for it, guys, if you want.
Well, no, because I've been, I try in the way that when we do play it on the channel, I try and attack that directly. Is we have got into our heads the idea that there is one right way to play, which is 2,000 points using the current ITC rules.
Yeah,
that is bollocks. Who said that? Why would you need to do that? You can have a perfectly enjoyable game of Warhammer with 20 figures and a dreadnought each.
I don't know how fun it would be. That would be, honestly.
Well, it was the flow. It was the tide that said that was the way to play.
Yeah,
because it was the most popular way of playing the game.
But again, I'm not even sure that it's the most popular. I think everybody's kind of moved towards feeling that they need to play this standardized ITC format, which they then embedded into the rules of 9th edition. That kind of way to play. But it stems from what you're watching, you see, because a lot of people, when you're watching games, that's what you're seeing. When you're listening to people podcasting, that's what they're talking about. They're talking about the tournament game, and it's very odd because I don't want to drive a Formula One car to work. As we compare ourselves to how it's the test match cricket version of the game. I don't want to play a 5-day game of cricket. I don't even want to watch a 5-day game of cricket.
Nobody wants to watch cricket
at lunchtime and when I'm on my way home from work to know how well the boys are doing over in Pakistan. But I'm not actually going to watch all 5 days of it.
You're getting dangerously close. Dangerously close. You got to put on your goggles here because you're getting really dangerously close to the conversation of narrative versus competitive play. And what is the normative style of play, and where do we sit on that? And I actually think that there's an element of geography that goes into this. You see, because I think in the UK, I think that it isn't as accepted to be playing in these kind of ITC level games with like 2,000 points. Now, I will say I do think that's kind of the standard game, 2,000 points, because that's kind of what the rules say.
In a club.
Yeah, that's kind of what the rules
finish. But 2,000 point ones don't.
But that has been, as far as I'm aware, that has always been the intended size. I started in 4th edition, 3rd edition. So that has always been like the intended size of game. And you have to remember with Americans, okay? Here's one for the Yanks. With Americans, they don't have the high street. They don't have they don't have gaming clubs as much as there are in the UK. So that makes tournaments far more important to the gaming culture over there. Because if you live in very disparate locations, it means you have to travel a lot to find your games. So you're more likely to go to these big, massive events where you're guaranteed to get like a weekend of games in, and you can guarantee that. Yeah. And they tend to play by competitive rules. And so that means that in America, there has been this culture of competitive play, which tends to perform in ways like the ITC rules, 2,000 points, and that's kind of perceived as like the official standard way to play. Whereas in the UK, I think there's a more casual gaming culture, a more narrative kind of framework where people are just more willing to play like random kind of game and stuff. I will say, though, that's kind of changing for everybody because I think there's a lot more kind of coffee table gaming. I still think that people who are willing to play like 2,000 points, people who say you have to play 2,000 points worth of Warhammer, tend to be a very select group and small group of people. I think most people are actually playing those like random
I
kitchen
also
table
think that
games.
they get kind of brainwashed into believing that is the right way to play.
Oh, massively. Yeah.
And I don't think it is.
Who though? Who's
tried to play it
Just
smaller on a smaller table with less points, but a game that might finish is really hard to persuade people that's worth trying. Partly because of this thing we talked about earlier about how few games people actually play. You know, so they kind of got into this psyche and said, next time I'm going to do it, you know, it's got to be bigger, it's got to be better, it's got to be like the best version. It's like, well, you really might want to try other versions because you might like them more.
Well, in fairness, though, if you're playing Warhammer, there is something to be said for the spectacle of the big game, right? Like that's kind of part of the joy of wargaming is the spectacle of the thing. To have all your rows of painted miniatures, aha, my legions go forward, right? To play on the coffee table.
To me because there's legions of unpainted miniatures when I go down there.
Well, that's the nightmare scenario. But yeah, like so, there is something to be said for the spectacle. No, I agree with you, and I'll say this much: the games of Warhammer I've been playing over the last like year or so have mostly been at around 1,000 points. They've actually been mostly because I can't do it. I can't do like a full 2,000 point game that drags on for like 4 hours. I need to be done quicker. I just don't have the time. Yep. But I do think that there is definitely this conception within the community that the standard size, like if you're going to do like a skirmish balanced game of Warhammer, it's 2,000 points. That's where it's balanced. But
like it's balanced in any way.
I don't know. We're to blame it. I mean, don't drag me into your morass here, Kaiser. Okay, I'm not taking any blame for this. I've never said that that's the case.
So I like having you on. So we don't agree on everything, and that's a good thing. Debate. Just want to come up. I never went down the Epic system with GW in the 90s, even now things cost a bomb on the second-hand market. I am utterly convinced, and maybe Discord has heard rumors, I don't know. Epic is coming again. It is going to be relaunched. They're cycling through their old games. They've done Aeronautica Imperialis. They've done Adeptus Titanicus, which are both in the same scale, which is like 10 mil. Epic is coming back in some format. I just hope to God they don't fuck it up because I'm really looking forward to it. Epic Space Marine Epic was my game. I went from Adeptus Titanicus to Epic. I never really played that much 40k. And so I wouldn't go spending money on old stuff on eBay at the moment. I think any as long as you can wait 2-3 years, it's coming.
I think that I think that you'd best pray that the game isn't too popular if you don't want it to be ruined. God, it's such a cynical take, but it's so true. Like I do find that the games that don't perform like incredibly well tend to be the ones that are kind of get the best sort of support. Like for example, Blood Bowl. Blood Bowl is a very niche game, but the prices on it aren't too bad because, well, firstly, there's a huge secondary market of like 3D printers, kind of artists, but also it's a game that doesn't like it's not like hugely popular. It doesn't have like a massive IP, so they don't really monetize it as hard. And I think that that's kind of the level where Epic would do really well, right? Like where it's kind of like nice box sets, pretty relatively affordable for a Games Workshop game. That'd be neat. That'd be cool. That's kind of what I'm hoping for the old world, but I know I'm wrong. Like I know it's not going to be like that. It's going to be more like Horus Heresy and therefore a nightmare.
Chain of Command, whatever means you want, and some dice. Yeah, but Sub said back there about this is back to the thing about I think sometimes we have cursed ourselves with rules that we've imposed upon ourselves that don't strictly stem from necessarily the original concept of the game. So Sub said about ball action difficult to get into because you need hundreds of army books. I can tell you that until very recently, very, very recently, every army that I've ever fielded on the channel was made from the main rule book. Because I don't need the specialist units. When I needed it was when I started to paint the Panzer units, and I wanted to use the new 250 specialist half tracks, not because they were better, but because they're not in the main rule book. They don't exist. So I needed to find the book that specialist unit in. I think that one of the real problems with Warhammer, so many other systems, is feeling that these supplements are required, because I don't think they are at all.
Honestly, so for bolt action, because I recently have been getting into bolt action a little bit, sort of. Conflict 47 is basically bolt action.
It is.
Yeah, so I was building my force just out of the main rulebook because I do have the armies of Germany and the armies of the Soviet Union books as well. But I don't even know where to start with those, right? Like I don't even know like what the hell I'd be building. I'm just building like a standard German force and a standard Soviet force. That's it. Full stop. Done. So I find that it's kind of like Warhammer 3rd edition, right? Where you've just got all the rules in the back of the book and you're just like, all right, that'll do. That'll do for me. But I do agree with you. So this is one of the reasons that I really didn't like the Warhammer Seasons model, because I felt like that was this idea in overdrive, right? Like this idea of supplements, but times a billion, because it actively was designed to have this redundancy built in where it would just be out of date. And so therefore I knew that in a year or two, we'd have this wasteland of books, all these books everywhere that no one knows what to do with or what to buy. If you're a new person that gets in and you're like, well, I wanted to play, I wanted to play as my Space Marine army. Like, where do I find the rules for this Space Marine unit? And they're like, oh, it's in book number 3 of year 4. And you're like, what? Like, what the hell's going on? And then you're desperately trying to. And we know how awesome Games Workshop is at retaining print runs of Codicy kind of books, right? So I knew it was going to be an absolute nightmare.
But it also goes out of date quite quickly. In the scheme of someone who's approaching 50 anyway.
Every 3 months, I think.
Yeah. No, I mean, like literally rules are obsolete even from this edition.
Oh yeah,
they're not from 3 months ago; they're from a year ago, but they've been superseded.
I mean, they're bringing out codices now, and they're obsolete by the time of release. It's insane. It's insane. Like because they're trying to do pre-release army, trying to early access the armies. I just want them to make a really fun game and sell it for a reasonable price. That's all I want. That's all I want. I just want it to be good, guys. I just want it to be good.
Just want it to be good. Yeah. Dwayne is top guy. Says we've been spoon-fed that's the way to play 40k, and that's how it comes out of the ivory tower. Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. Like, who's spoon feeding it though? Like, I do think that obviously there are these norms and values that come, as part of a kind of culture, like a wargaming culture for sure. I don't think that it's necessarily just wargaming though, right? Like even for video games, you want to play like the latest expansion. Even for basically anything, you want to play the newest thing because it's kind of perceived to be the most relevant to you and the most.
Yeah.
Quality, right?
You're sort of chasing that thing, aren't you? Yeah. So Jez saying 1500 was the standard in the mid 90s, but 500. Someone else earlier said 20 figures in a dreadnought was what I used to play. I'm telling you, I played 20 figures in a dreadnought with kids every Friday night, and they enjoy themselves, and they just about finish the game in an hour if I really match them. Quit talking and roll the dice.
Have you cracked out the 1-page rules for them at all?
Some of the boys found it themselves. It was actually the boys that gave me copy. Yeah, but it's the ones that don't play Warhammer. So here's again, you mentioned narrative before. The best game that we've played in the school club, which is also 12. My oldest boy is a sixth former. He's 17, all right, and he's probably going to do quite well when we take them to Warhammer World for the school's event. I mean, I've got him like to one side working with another kid's like, you need to practice because you might actually win this. But with the rest of them, we played a game just before Christmas. Everybody got to bring a single model up to 10 power level. So, and I had my Redemptors that were painted. So and all of the other kids who play board games and what have you, we all played one big game where it was just a dreadnought each. Anybody can shoot anybody, and it was the best game that most of those kids have ever had.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. Honestly, I don't doubt it. I think that narrative games are funner. But it took a brain shift for me. It took me to look at the game
narrative. It was just a rumble, It was a MOBA.
Yeah. Well, I think that's because it's a little bit different, right? But I do think it takes you to kind of view the games a little bit different. First, I think team games are really fun because they take a lot of the stress off of like playing like yourself versus another person. I think it's actually kind of a stressful experience, especially if it's kind of competitive. It doesn't even need to be like in a tournament or like there doesn't have to be stakes, but just going 1v1 in an adversarial game tends to be a little bit stressful, I think.
Yeah, especially in tournaments. I played a doubles tournament and that went a lot better. just because I could leave the table for 2 minutes for one thing. I could go and have a fight while models were being moved.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. No. I honestly I think that it's a lot funner. This is why I'm a huge fan of cooperative games. Just by the by, because I think that it makes for a funner, more casual kind of experience for people. There's a lot less stress because you're fighting against like a bot or an AI or whatever, you know. And we're seeing loads of more co-op and solo games these days, which is really awesome to see. But in any case, yeah. So I think that like with adversarial games, though, because there's that stress of trying to compete and win almost, even if it's not competitive, it has put narrative games that, you know, we don't really have quite the same culture in Warhammer compared to wargame, like historical wargaming, where in historical wargaming, it might be a case of like, oh, let's do like, you know, some historical battle and see what, you know, and there's two asymmetric forces and we've got like different points. Like you've got way less points values than me. Let's see how long you can last in your defense. Whereas Warhammer, that would be like a little bit weird. You'd be like, well, hold on. I kind of want another 1,000 points as well, right? This isn't very fair. It's not really done as much anymore.
So that's been one of the interesting things about the campaign game that John and I have played for Bolt Action. The video that we've just put out, but it forces you to fight asymmetric, and not necessarily asymmetric in terms of I've got a lot more than you. I mean, those games, generally, we've played games where one side's had 1,000 points, the other side 500. That wasn't a long game. But in this battle that we've just had, John had 1,000 points of armor, and I had 1,000 points, 500 armor, 500 infantry. My ability to use a balanced force gave me a huge edge.
Yeah.
But of course, strategically, that armor force that John had was more it was able to move more strategically. He was able to be in a position to conduct that battle, which otherwise he might not have been. But it's interesting in terms of producing those games which are asymmetric, because actually a lot of people who don't play historical games probably think historical gamers do a lot more asymmetric battles, but they really don't. They mostly play games. Very few players are happy with systems that don't have point systems.
Yeah,
they you know, they may be asymmetric insofar as my list can have 3 flamers in it and yours can only have 1. But they're not like, oh, let's play a game where I've got 1,000 and you've got 700 points. That's actually quite rare.
I think that's
really good for producing that kind of imbalance. And we should talk about campaign games actually, because we're doing 2 campaigns. We're also doing SPQR, which somebody else mentioned, which is a really good example of how you can have a lot of fun playing a terrible game system.
I was gonna say, don't you hate that game?
The game system is awful, but we love in the campaign mostly because the characters are all called Biggest Dickus and Nobbus Longus.
Dude, I love campaigns. I think I feel like we've had this conversation. Maybe we had it on stream, maybe we did. But yeah. I adore campaigns. I absolutely love campaigns. But I always have the big problem with campaigns is that they either end up being too important, like the strategic element ends up being too important, in which case the battles just don't matter. Or it's the other way around, where it ends up not mattering at all. So, like, why even have it, right? Like, why even have the campaign? But I adore campaigns. I mean, one of my earliest memories of wargaming is in trying to convince all my friends to, like, get into a Warhammer campaign, and we drew a map and stuff, you know, and we would be fighting over different territories on the map. Like, that kind of narrative has always been what I'm interested in, and creating these scenarios, like you say, these kind of asymmetric battles is of intense interest to me. But I'm yet to find a game that I think does the campaign system well, like does what I want, you know, like a Total War game.
Okay, so I would say that the Combined Arms game that we're playing is actually a very good campaign system for 2 reasons. One is that it is a passable board game, completely distinct from the actual battles.
Okay,
we played it as a board game just for like 3 or 4 turns. And like, okay, it's not amazing, but it's better. It's not Ludo, you know. It's better than that.
Yeah.
It's a passable board game in and of itself, but also it's got inherent mechanics built in within the system, so that when you score a victory point, I get an extra piece.
Yes, yeah.
So it's anti-snowballing. By winning, you have less forces.
Yeah, that's really good.
Snowballing has always been
It's always the problem.
Oh god, I tried to run a Necromunda campaign. Oh geez, that got out of hand real fast. I know what the worst part is. Whenever you're like the invigilator, like the person running the campaign, and then it's your force that ends up like running away with it, and you're like, guys, I didn't mean to. Like, I'm sorry, you know.
Yeah.
It's a real bummer, you know, because it really does. It really hurts the. So I'm really glad. I'm really glad to hear that the combined arms might be good, because whenever it first was talked about, I was kind of curious about it. So maybe I'll get it for like my Conflict 47. Maybe I'll get it for my Conflict.
It would be difficult to play a pre-Total War game with it. People could use it for like 7 Years War or whatever, and saying until you hit the 1900s, people have one army in the field. So this whole map thing is kind of irrelevant. You're marching towards each other. There may be a few sieges along the way until you fight a battle, but you don't have most. Well, you need to be an era in which there are many armies on the same map, and that just doesn't exist historically.
We can, you know, I mean, I'm happy to fudge it. I'm happy to fudge it. You know,
it's fine in World War One. It isn't fine in Napoleon's age. You know, what are these pieces? What they should all be within a day's march of each other, or you've done something really wrong in terms of the deployment of your army. They all need to be able to come to the same battlefield.
In fairness, though, I mean, it never stopped games like Total War, for example, like the video game Total War. It doesn't stop video games from creating a historical kind of scenario.
No,
where there's more than one
have
army.
armies in provinces in that, though.
Yeah, but like, I mean, there's you can kind of go, well, it's not quite historical, but you know, it's all a bit of fun in it. So so have multiple armies led by multiple generals. Why not? Just for a bit of a laugh.
Yeah. But in rewriting the cards, you can make it fun. But a campaign system is preventing snowballing. Or you go the other route, which somebody mentioned Mighty Empires. The original Mighty Empires game with the cardboard tiles was a really involved, detailed board game. I really liked that.
The tiles. Yeah.
The newer one with plastic tiles does similar to what SPQR does.
The newer one?
Although you've got...
You mean the one from like 2004?
Something like that.
The newer one.
Yeah, definitely. That is totally newer than the original cardboard one.
The contemporary Mighty Empires.
That, although you had territory control, you basically each player plays one battle a turn, and then some territory changes. You actually move pieces around on the strategic map, really, in the same way. And that is a way that you prevent snowballing. Is you keep it saying no matter what happens, you're going to fight a 2,000-point battle for territory control, and if you've got a gold mine, you get an extra 50 points or something. Like that, you know?
That kind of takes out the fun of the campaign, because, like you say, I think a lot of the fun is the asymmetric. Like, oh, have you got? Okay, well, actually, I tell you, like, do you want to hear what I think might be? I haven't played this, but I think this might be the greatest campaign system ever made, because it sounds so incredible.
Go on.
Have you ever heard of the game called Mad Dogs with Guns? I think I might have mentioned this game to you guys before.
No, I'll Google it while you talk.
Mad Dogs with Guns. It is a mob game, right? Set in the 1930s America, and you play as different mobs. And so the campaign is about control of this city. And that includes buying judges and things. So essentially, how the game functions is whenever I'm attacking you, I'm not like attacking your territory. I'm doing a hit on you. So for example, I might be going after your mob boss as he's coming out of a restaurant. And suddenly my guys are driving by in a car and shooting at you with Tommy guns from the car. And you're like, oh God, I gotta like hide. And that's the scenario. The scenario is you and maybe like one of your dudes that you're having dinner with are like having to duck behind a car and get away as my guys try to kill you. And there's a really fun element then where you have to actively have dudes like guys, like guards, right? On your different, like your speakeasies and things like that. You've got to have actual guards there, and the enemy might attack you, like the rival mobs might attack your speakeasies, and they have to get to a telephone to call for the boys, right? They get backup. They'll be like, we're under attack, boys. Like we need more guys over here, and then you can get reinforcements in. And all of this happens in the context of a city. There are civilians on the streets. If your bullets accidentally hit civilians, then suddenly you have this thing called the outrage meter that starts to build up as the press and politicians start to get annoyed at all this gang violence. And when that happens, the police are an NPC faction that start to have more and more of an impact, and they'll start to do raids on different mob organizations, right, on your different places. And if it gets bad enough, the feds will get involved. and they are going to be raiding, and they will never stop until they have a mob boss in custody. And that is like the end game, where now suddenly, if one person is being a real menace, the other players will try to look to eliminate them because they're getting the feds on everybody. But you can get arrested and things like that. Like you can surrender to the police. You can get arrested. Your mob boss can get put away in prison. You can buy judges. You can buy the mayor. You can buy politicians. You can get your own. Like it's a very kind of simulationist, but it seems like a really fun game to me. Like it sounds like a very different style of campaign that is obviously designed around having just a really enjoyable experience, right? It doesn't sound balanced at all, but that kind of seems like the fun of it, right?
That does sound pretty cool.
Well, the individual missions can. Well, we are, as always, we get chatting. We are running over now. So
what? I didn't even get to talk about I'm starting a bolt action army. I'm playing Conflict 47, and I don't even get to talk about that with the Restless Kaiser.
You sort of mentioned it.
But you get to come back in a couple of months, Discourse. You're always welcome here.
No. The pen is fresh right now. I want to say, Warlord, what's going on with those Soviet troops? Get one gun molded, one hand. God damn it!
You've had the joy of doing that. You should have watched some more of our videos, and we could have told you about that.
I lost. I knew about it, but I didn't realize it'd be this bad. I lost the little sheet that comes with them that tells you about the different where the arms go. So I'm blind here, man. I'm like cutting off arms, trying to test them, trying to glue them on and see where the gun goes.
Yeah,
it's a nightmare.
They're opposite one another. That doesn't work like that. Obviously.
No, you would think that's the case, but they're not. They're not even labeled. They don't even have numbers like assigned to one another.
No.
That's like, ooh, you gotta. Although I will say it's very refreshing to be given just like plastic sprues just thrown at you like they're worth nothing, because they aren't. They're just like thrown at you. They're just given away, you know. You're buying like a Soviet tank, and they're like, have an infantry sprue. I go, geez, thanks. It's insane, like how you're spending like £30 and you're getting like 30 guys, right? Just like boom, like that, and you can. It's awesome. It's really cool. It's really refreshing. It's a good reminder about how cheap hard plastic. I mean, I'm going to start calling hard plastic cheap plastic from now on. I'm going to call them cheap plastic miniatures because it's cheap. The mold costs are inconsequential. They're inconsequential. They're built into the idea of the mini in the first place. You don't think that you're going to get enough of a run.
They all say the tooling of the molds is what costs them the money.
Yeah, it costs you like 17,000. But I mean, you'll have that. So I mean, you know, at a scale like Games Workshop, you'll have that paid off in the first.
Yeah. But for your smaller companies, they don't.
Yeah. For like Warlord,
which is a very big company. When we've had the privilege to talk to John and Paul a few times now, and each one of their hard plastic frames is a big decision.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I imagine it is.
It's not like one is going to break the bank, but it's like we could lose money on this, which is interesting because when you think about it, it's saying like, £17,000. Like, you mean you can make a box of miniatures and not make 17,000 on it? That's quite astonishing, actually.
Mm-hmm. It is.
You know, so what it looks like when you're not selling Space Marines.
Yeah, like 17,000 to a global company like Games Workshop is nothing, right? Like it's nothing. The skill they operate on, but obviously for a company like Warlord Games, I can see how that is more of a decision for sure. It's just that when you say the number 17,000, I think people think that it's more money than it is for these kind of bigger companies.
Company that just gave out £62 million in share dividends.
Sure did, 60% increase. Price of electricity is real bad though. So
you got a few £17,000 in that, haven't they?
Oh, did you? Yeah.
and just how much smaller these companies are, we forget. You know, it's like Flames of War is one we talk about. I don't know if for anyone that follows our Facebook page or our Facebook group, when I post up a link saying, "Oh, we've just got this new Flames of War starter set in the store," Pete Siminovich gives it a like on Facebook. He's the guy who's owns Flames of War. To give you an idea how small the company is, I'm not a big YouTuber, and the company's owner and CEO follows our Facebook.
Maybe you're not a big YouTuber. You're getting the bloody Raise the Flag, Blood and Plunder starter set. Come on. You've made it.
Email the guy and say, this is coming out on Kickstarter. Can I have a look? And he sent us one. And we're hoping to do that tomorrow. Is that right, John?
I would very much like to see the plastic boaty and make some pirate dudes.
Can I just? I'm so excited. I've been waiting on this thing for like over a year. Just been like, when's my pirates going to arrive? It looks cool, man. It looks really cool.
It does look fun.
Right? So what are you going to call it?
Bodie McBoatface.
Bodie McBoatface, surely.
What a nightmare. What a nightmare. So I will say one thing about Blood and Plunder. You're going to hate me for this, Rest. You're going to hate me for this, guys. It needs more historical stuff. In fact, imagine every single historical game ever. My response is needs more ahistorical stuff. Needs more like sea monsters and things like that. Honestly, I think it would be cool. Yeah,
I think he's really into. It's Mike. I forget his.
They're really into the historical.
He's really into the kind of the history of it.
Yeah,
because he's also making think. The thing about this Blood and Plunder set is it's 18th, not 16th century.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's like
and like when I saw him in his Kickstarter, he's talking about it, I was like,
yeah,
it's still pirates, right?
Yeah, like people don't care.
This is very late in the pirate era. This is different.
So I think that kind of historical kind of what are they called? Rivet counters?
Rivet counters.
Yeah, rivet counters. I think that's a very small minority of people who really care about that stuff. You know, it's the same way I sometimes hear companies who say like, oh, our game is like incredibly has all the science and stuff behind it, all makes sense. And I'm like, okay, interesting. But most people actually are fine with that not being the case. Like most people are fine with things being a little bit ahistoric if it makes for a good game. I mean, like look at the biggest game in the historical space is Bolt Action, right? And that's kind of closer to a Hollywood movies version of World War II than an actual, expression of World War II in and of itself. And I think that I mean, I think that's fine. Honestly, I don't think that there's any problem with that. I actually think that having the game, it makes the game a little bit more accessible. But I grew up on kind of games like Command and Conquer, right? That were alt history. So I adore games that take historical contexts and then twist them in certain ways. So as much as it is really cool that Blood and Plunder is very focused on the history. Firstly, I don't think that a majority of people actually care that it's entire. I think most people are like, "Oh, pirate game," right? I think that's most people, right? And I think that skeleton pirates would be totally cool to see. Skeleton pirates and sea monsters and lost treasures and things like that.
That is joy about these hobbies. Discourse is that you can make it whatever you want. Just use some Skelly Bob miniatures.
No, just build the model. I don't want to do work. Just make it really easy, really quick. I can just clip it out of a sprue and just prime it.
How many people open a box and see that there's no tissue, handkerchief on your head with it? It's like, what? There's the pirates. I need them ones. Yeah. Icon. I don't know what century it is. That's what pirates look like.
Yeah, I think even maybe because I think that Conflict 47 gets it right, where it's kind of like an expansion. It's like a side thing where it's like you can do the historical only, or you can add in this little sexy element. I think that's probably the best way. It's just I personally like my historical games kind of ahistorical, and having them be super historical, but then adding in this ahistorical element is always really fun to me. I don't know why. I just think that's even funner, right? Everything's super serious, and then
based on the true story.
Serpents.
I think you're right about. So this is another thing that we kind of very much overlook with our 21st century sensibilities. Are looking backwards. You mentioned sea monsters, saying if you want to make it more historical, add sea monsters. Every fucking sailor in the 17th century believed in sea monsters.
There were whales. There were whales.
And all that shit.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have been as surprised as we would if a giant sea monster grabbed hold of the ship. They're expecting it.
I had a friend who ran a game once who told us that we were going to be in a low fantasy setting, but that it's traditional kind of like monsters and ghouls and stuff like that. And we played it. And no monsters ever showed up, but we played it, it turned out it wasn't it was a historical setting. He put us in Germany in the 1400s. But it was a really fun game because we played. We played as if magic was real, and we were we were in a certain headspace. It was a very interesting idea. Very fun little one shot. Very fun little game.
Right, let's wrap this up. Stop talking. Let's wrap this up before my phone melts.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. All right. So hobby wise, I got some pink on these. I don't know if you can see the faces. There you go. They're taking starting to take shape.
Getting there. Getting there.
What do you get up to, John?
I made some Aztecs and put a skull in a lizard man's hand.
Oh,
fact.
Lizard man's hand.
You know, oh, alas, poor Yorick. I knew him not very well. So that was a bit of fun. And Discourse has spoken all the lovely words.
Yeah.
To have you back on the show.
I got up to the tank destroyer section of Conflict 47. Just a few more pages to go, and I'm all the way through.
Walkers!
Because walkers are so much better than tracks in 1940.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Funny enough, I'm actually not the biggest fan of the walkers and things like that. I prefer the vehicles with the weird turrets and
with the Tesla cannons.
Yeah, and all the weird infantry and stuff that it adds in. I think the Tesla, like the Siberian Terrors and Ghost Walkers and stuff like that.
Yeah. All right. We better wrap it up. Next time, I think we've got the guy who wrote Mortem et Gloriam on, who we met at that airfield show, John. Which one was it?
You did. You and James Workshop did. I was too busy walking around buying old dwarfs and stuff.
But you were there. You were there.
I was in the area. Yeah.
You're in the building. Yeah. The guy who wrote Mortem et Gloriam on I think the 28th is going to come on and talk to us a little bit about that as a system, because we haven't done a lot of Ancients, but with the stuff that we've done with the SPQR, we have. There will, for people that are asking, always there will be more SPQR, there will be more bolt action. Got a mountain of unboxings to do here. We're going to get the Blood and Plunder done and up as soon as we can. In the works, coming out some point over the next month. I have played a game of Grimdark Future, the one-page rules. It is up for viewing for members. Played it with Woolly Mike, and as the Plastic Crack Gaming is saying, don't forget to like the video, folks. I've dropped down for the meantime. Sorry, some people will be disappointed. I'm only putting out one video a week at the moment on a Friday. We've been doing this for quite a few years now, and I'm kind of trying to get a bit of a better work-life balance, to be honest.
It's tough.
It's not going to ever pay the mortgage at the way that it's going, and I have to be kind of realistic. So please do support the channel in the many, many different ways that you can, including taking out a YouTube membership, buying some product from on our website, or just liking the video and sharing it with your friends. Hope your wives, girlfriends, husbands, and boyfriends will forgive you for spending your evening, their Valentine's evening with us.
You still owe me a date, Kaiser. You still owe me a date. What the hell?
Well, we'll talk about it when you're in the UK. All right, guys. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.